Good evening from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where flight controllers are standing by for the final act in the series of events that will bring home 3 crew members who spent 4 months on board the International Outpost. At this hour, the Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft, with Soyuz Commander Anatoly Ivanishin, Flight Engineer Kate Rubins of NASA, and Takuya Onishi, flight engineer from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, are strapped into their descent module seats, with Ivanishin in the center seat, flanked to his left by Onishi as board engineer number 1 and Rubins to his right as board engineer number 2, with countdown clocks ticking backward toward an engine firing of 4 minutes and 37 seconds, just 20 minutes from now, that will begin the Soyuz's ability to drop out of orbit and begin its slide back into the Earth's atmosphere, targeted for a landing at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time, about 148 kilometers southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan. A little over 2 hours ago at 7:35 p.m. Central Time, after several hours of preparations, Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi sent the commands to open up the hooks that had held the Soyuz spacecraft in the docking port of the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station since the trio arrived at the outpost back on July 9th. Springs on both sides of the docking interface pushed off against one another, enabling the Soyuz to separate from Rassvet and begin its separation away from the station to a distance of about 12 kilometers where it sits at the moment. Everything went extremely well. The crew had boarded the Soyuz vehicle just after 4 p.m. Central Time earlier today, and there in this videotape of some of the highlights of the Soyuz's departure from the International Space Station. Spectacular view as the Soyuz drifted away from the station, leaving on board the 3 new crew members of the newly comprised Expedition 50 crew, the station commander, NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, and his 2 Russian crewmates, Andrei Borisenko and Sergei Ryzhikov, who will remain a 3-man crew for the next 3 weeks on board the station until the arrival on November 20th of Peggy Whitson of NASA, Oleg Novitsky of Roscosmos, and Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, that will round out the Expedition 50 crew back into a 6-person complement. As the Soyuz and its 3 crew members prepare for the deorbit burn that will begin their trek back to Earth, down in Kazakhstan, preparations are well underway for a joint U.S., Russian, and Japanese recovery team to make their way via 10 Mi-8 helicopters, Russian helicopters, from the town of Zhezkazgan at the airport to the landing site about 148 kilometers to the southeast. It will be about a 35-minute helicopter flight. The helicopters will take off in sequential fashion a short time from now, arriving in a racetrack oval-shaped pattern around the landing site, where they will await the arrival of the Soyuz, and once it touches down at 10:59 p.m. Central Time, which will be 9:59 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning, about an hour and 55 minutes after sunrise, the helicopters will begin to land very rapidly in sequential fashion to begin the process of erecting a medical tent at the landing site and to begin the process of extracting the 3 crew members from the descent module. Again, everything is in good shape at the landing site. Preparations are all set for the arrival of the Expedition 49 crew, who are wrapping up a 115-day mission, 113 days on board the International Space Station, a mission encompassing 1,840 orbits of the Earth, a mission that will have spanned 48.6 million statute miles at its conclusion. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group has been tracking the weather in south-central Kazakhstan, in and around the landing site, And the latest forecast that was just provided shows some improvement in the visibility at the landing site. A cold front has moved through the area. We're expecting now some scattered clouds at 2,200 feet, scattered clouds at 12,000 feet. Winds will be very light out of the west at about 7 knots and a temperature at about 34 degrees Fahrenheit at landing time to greet Kate Rubins, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Takoya Onishi. The deorbit burn that is coming up in about 15 and a half minutes will be a 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines that will begin a braking maneuver to start the Soyuz's descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. In this animation, you see the depiction of the engine firing, again 4 minutes, 37 seconds to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit. Some 27 minutes after the deorbit burn, the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz will occur. The descent module with the crew on board will have its heat shield in the direction of travel, repelling the heat that will build up as it barrels through the atmosphere. A short time after that, about 15 minutes before touchdown, a sequential deployment of 2 pilot parachutes, a drogue chute, and then a main chute will deploy from the Soyuz to slow the vehicle and its 3 passengers down considerably. Just a few seconds above the Earth, a soft landing engine firing will provide a final braking maneuver, and the Soyuz will touch down again. Landing is scheduled at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time this evening. The landing site coordinates 47.18 degrees north latitude, 69.34 degrees east longitude. That is the forecast landing target for the Soyuz MS, or Modified Systems 01 spacecraft, the first in a new genre of Soyuz vehicles. The Soyuz MS-02, of course, was the ticket to ride for Shane Kimbrough, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Andrei Borisenko as they departed from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan just 10 days ago, arriving on the station just 8 days ago to begin their 4-month mission on the orbital outpost. And Peggy Whitson, Thomas Pesquet, and Oleg Novitsky will be launching on the Soyuz MS-03 vehicle in the early morning hours of November 18th, Kazakhstan time. As we move in to the final hour or so before landing, here in the flight control room in Houston, a full complement of flight controllers on duty. From the far right on your screen to the far left, you see flight directors T.J. Kramer and Courtney McMillan. McMillan in charge of the Orbit 3 team here in Houston at this hour, joined on console by 2 spacecraft communicators, astronaut Nicole Mann, and on the far left, veteran astronaut Mike Barrett, who is a Soyuz systems expert here on console for the deorbit entry and landing phase of tonight's activities. Across, right outside of Moscow in the Russian Mission Control Center, the Russian Flight Control Team is in charge of all of the operations associated with the Soyuz's return to Earth as they monitor their consoles in the large flight control room there in Korolyov, as you see from this live view from a balcony camera overlooking the Russian flight control room. The International Space Station and the Soyuz, about 12 kilometers away, are moving from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator as they approach the far southwestern coast of the continent of South America before beginning a track from southwest to northeast across the Atlantic Ocean. Couple of milestones that we should fill you in on. Once the deorbit burn is complete, the upper section of the Soyuz vehicle, the orbital module that contains the avionics for the Soyuz spacecraft will be depressurized about 10 seconds after the completion of the deorbit burn. That will set the stage for the pyrotechnic separation of the orbital module and the lower section, the instrumentation and propulsion module, from the crew cabin in the descent module. Again, the descent module, the only surviving section of the Soyuz spacecraft with the crew on board. Some 27 minutes after the deorbit burn, the modules, the three sections will separate. The crew will monitor that and report back towards mission control in Korolyov. The flight control team there and the Soyuz shift flight director will be encouraging Anatoly Ivanishin, flying under the Soyuz call sign of Irkut, to continue reporting all developments on board and the condition of the crew as they begin their trek back toward the Earth's atmosphere and the first tug and sensation of Earth's gravity once they reach atmospheric entry at an altitude of about 420,000 feet. The module separation is scheduled at 10:33 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. Some 4 minutes later, the crew will begin its entry into the plasma regime, where the temperatures will build up to their highest degree of some 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That will be at an altitude of almost 80 kilometers. The crew will enter a command via the descent hand controller for the start of the controlled entry guidance. The onboard computers in the descent module will be targeting their landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. The excursion into the plasma regime in the Earth's atmosphere will take about 5 minutes to complete. Once the crew exits the plasma regime, they'll be pulling about 4 to 5 Gs against their bodies. That expected at about 10:42 p.m. Central Time. That will be followed some 2 minutes later with the command to begin the sequence to open up the parachutes. And it is not uncommon, keep in mind, we mention this every landing, but it is not uncommon for choppy or no communications at all during the descent phase because of the proximity and the distance between the Soyuz spacecraft and antennas on the International Space Station. Once the Soyuz passes much closer to the landing site, the crew will regain communications with an Antonov fixed-wing aircraft, basically a flying command and control center that will relay voice communications and data from the Soyuz spacecraft to the flight controllers back at mission control in Korolyov. Once the crew touches down, with again landing expected at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time tonight, that will be 9:59 and 13 seconds a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. Once the touchdown occurs, the 10 Russian Mi-8 helicopters with the heart of the Rosaviatsa search and recovery team, augmented by NASA and Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency personnel, occupying those helicopters along with flight surgeons, ISS program officials, and other personnel. Those helicopters will begin to land in proximity to where the Soyuz will have touched down. They will begin the process of extracting the crew from the Soyuz, while experts and specialists from RSC and Nergio will erect a medical tent nearby. Once the crew members have had a chance to gain their land legs by sitting out in 3 chairs alongside one another right by their spacecraft, they will be carried in those chairs into the medical tent to be helped out of their Sokol launch and entry suits and into more comfortable flight clothing for initial medical tests. The 3 crew members then will be loaded about an hour and a half after landing back into 3 helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, which is about 2 hours to the northeast of the landing site, where the crew will be greeted with a traditional Kazakh welcoming ceremony, followed by their departure. The crew will split up. with Ivanishin boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to his training base in Star City, Russia. That flight will land at Chkalovsky Airfield just outside of Star City. Rubins and Onishi will board a NASA plane for the long flight back to Houston.
Very well. Then you don't need to send the next command. Copy.
Less than 6.5 minutes now from the initiation of the deorbit burn. We'll be following that very carefully. Ivanishin will be reading off chamber pressures in the engines as the flight controllers in Korolyov mark the elapsed time of the burn to ensure that the burn was executed in proper fashion. Everything has gone very smoothly with all of the pre-landing preparations, both on board the Soyuz MS-01 and down at the landing site in Kazakhstan, where the support recovery team personnel are preparing to board their respective helicopters to head to the landing site once the deorbit burn has begun and shortly after the deorbit burn has been completed. The International Space Station currently flying 252 statute miles, just crossing over the southern tip of South America over Tierra del Fuego, about to begin a southwest and northeasterly track across the Atlantic Ocean. On board the station, Shane Kimbrough, the new Expedition 50 commander, along with his Russian crewmates, Sergei Ryzhikov and Andrei Borisenko. They are awake and listening to all of the developments, monitoring all of the transmissions as their three colleagues who they bid farewell to about 6 hours ago on board the station begin the trek back home.
Configuration is valve in the off position. Moscow unintelligible.
Включение СКД. Средний этап.
Four minutes to SKD activation. Copy.
Coming up on the 3-minute mark until the initiation of the deorbit burn, we'll be listening very intently as the crew monitors the progress of the burn, reporting back to the flight controllers at Mission Control in Korolyov.
Moscow Station, MLK Air. (35, 34). Moscow Station, space to ground 1.
Время до включения СКД. Средний этап.
2 minutes to SKD activation. Copy.
90 seconds until the deorbit burn. All of the Soyuz systems in excellent shape. The crew reported a short time ago that they are ready to come home. Anatoly Ivanishin, the Soyuz commander, in the center seat of the Soyuz, flanked on his left by Takuya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and on his right, NASA astronaut Kate Rubins.
1 minute to
1 minute until the deorbit burn.
activation.
Принято. Есть.
We have L3. Copy.
As we stand by for the start of the deorbit burn, helicopters in Jez-Kazgan have begun to leave the airport in sequential fashion, heading for the landing site. Inside 30 seconds.
Десять секунд.
10 seconds. Copy.
5, 4,
5, 4, 3,
1.
2, 1.
Есть включение СКД.
SCADA activation.
Работает
The
СКД.
deorbit burn is underway.
Operating.
Говорит, работает СКД, ускорение 0,97. Параметр
0.37 delta V. 0.47.
7 метров.
50 seconds and we have 7 meters.
Параметр 40.
Parameters are nominal.
30 секунд, 13,7 метров.
13.7 meters.
Хорошо, идет.
30 seconds. Parameters are nominal.
Coming up on the 1 minute mark into this 4 minute, 37 second retrograde braking maneuver. So far so good. The burn currently being executed in a nominal fashion.
Минута 27 метров.
1 minute, 27 meters. Parameters are nominal.
Минута 15, 30.
1 minute, 50 seconds and 34 meters.
Минута 30, 40 метров.
1 minute
Параметр КД.
and 30, 40 meters. Parameters are nominal.
Минута 45, 47,6.
1 minute, 45 seconds, 47.6.
Две минуты 50.
2 minutes and 57 meters, and parameters are nominal.
Coming up on the midway point of this deorbit burn. So far so good.
2:15, 61.
2 minutes, 15 seconds, 61 meters.
Два 30, 69.
2.5 minutes, 69 meters. Parameters are nominal.
Прошли границу первого участка. 2:45, 75,7.
2:45, 45.7.
Три минуты 82.
3 minutes and 82 meters.
Параметры КД в норме.
Parameters are nominal.
Три 15, 89.
3 minutes, 15 seconds, 89 meters.
All parameters reporting normal from Anatoly Ivanishin aboard the descent module of the Soyuz MS-01.
3 minutes 30 seconds and 90
1 minute to go in the deorbit burn.
parameters are nominal. Three minutes 45 minutes, 3 minutes 45 seconds and 104 meters.
Parametry KD normy.
4 minutes 111.8 meters. Parameters are nominal.
4:15, 118. 20 секунд КК.
4 minutes 15 seconds and 118 meters.
Standing by now for engine cutoff.
4 minutes 30 seconds and 125.7 meters.
Разделение по ГТ.
We have Vegeta separation. Copy.
Что нужно загореться, загорелось. Отработан импульс.
All indicators illuminated.
По данным.
And we have 127.98 meters for the burn.
And the deorbit burn is complete and reported to be good. So the Soyuz now begins its journey back towards the Earth's atmosphere. The next major milestone will come just after 10:33 p.m. Central Time, about 22 minutes from now. That will be the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz, leaving the descent module by itself with the crew on board, its heat shield facing the direction of travel as it plunges back into the Earth's atmosphere.
We copied your report on the thruster operation. Everything is nominal. Yes, copy that, and we're working for page 56.
And once again, a reminder, as the Soyuz moves further and further away from the International Space Station, communications could become choppy, could be lost altogether. That is not uncommon. The Soyuz will be in a position to regain communications, most prominently with an Antonov fixed-wing aircraft flying around the landing site that is used as a relay station, if you will, between the Soyuz, the crew, in voice communications, as well as for data that is being relayed from the Soyuz back towards the flight control team in Korolyov. Russian Mi-8 helicopters are leaving the Zhezkazgan airport one by one. 10 Russian Mi-8 helicopters. There are 2 additional helicopters downrange to the southwest of Zhezkazgan, near the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. They will be airborne shortly towards the midway point between what is called the ballistic landing site. That would be the target for the Soyuz. In the highly unlikely event a technical problem would crop up, forcing a shortfall in the landing of the Soyuz. Once the Soyuz has passed that regime, the ballistic helicopters no longer will be needed. Focus of attention will be at the prime landing site for the 10 Russian Mi-8 helicopters that are en route there, along with 4 all-terrain vehicles, all part of the Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces, augmented by a NASA recovery team and support personnel from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency.
Inaudible.
About 43.5 minutes until the anticipated touchdown of the Soyuz at a location just to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. Once again, after the Soyuz has landed, the search and recovery forces will quickly make their way towards the spacecraft to extract the 3 crew members and place them in chairs that are going to be positioned right alongside the capsule. The crew will have an opportunity to gain a bit of equilibrium and their landing legs back before they're carried in those chairs into a nearby medical tent that will be erected and inflated very quickly after landing. They will have an opportunity to doff their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits, get into more comfortable flight clothing, and undergo initial medical testing for about an hour and a half or so before they board a trio of helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, to the northeast of the landing site. Again, the Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center in its latest forecast indicates that there are some breaks in the clouds upstream of the landing site. So the Soyuz and the helicopter recovery complement should be in and out of low clouds for the next few hours through the recovery of the Soyuz crew. Forecast calling for scattered clouds at 2,200 feet and 12,000 feet. Winds out of the west at about 7 knots. A landing time temperature around 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Now inside 40 minutes until touchdown. As we mentioned earlier, this is the period of time that communications often are either choppy or lost altogether between the Soyuz and the flight control team in Korolyov. You're looking at a live picture of the ISS flight control room at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow from a balcony camera. This crew completing 115 days in space, 113 days on the International Space Station, An eventful 4 months for Rubins, Onishi, and Ivanishin. Kate Rubins completing 2 spacewalks, totaling almost 13 hours of spacewalking time, the first of which she joined Jeff Williams for the installation of the first international docking adapter on the forward end of the U.S. segment of the International Space Station, to which U.S. commercial crew vehicles will link up to in the future. Hundreds of scientific experiments for Rubins, including DNA sequencing, and 4 visiting vehicles arriving, including a SpaceX Dragon cargo craft, and the return of Orbital ATK's Cygnus craft and its return to flight from the Wallops flight facility in Virginia. The Cygnus craft arriving just 1 week ago. About 12 minutes away from the anticipated pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. Flight controllers in Korolyov confirming that the uppermost section of the Soyuz spacecraft, the orbital module, was depressurized as planned just a few seconds after the completion of the deorbit burn, setting the stage for its separation from the rest of the Soyuz vehicle.
Altitude is decreasing, yes. Inaudible.
We're about 8 minutes away from the anticipated separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. That module separation will precede the Soyuz entering the atmosphere, feeling the first traces of atmospheric entry, and the crew will feel the first tug of gravity against their bodies since their launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome back on July 7th.
Иркут, тупо Москвы, напоминаю.
Irkut, this is Moscow. You may release the PDT button,
Без фиксатора.
and when you need to talk to us, you may depress the PDT button, but do not secure it.
Moving from southwest to northeast, the Soyuz is now 32 minutes away from touchdown.
Напоминаю, можно отжать клавишу передачи, далее связь вести, нажатием тангенты без фиксатора.
Inaudible.
Закрываем гермошлем.
We are closing the visors.
Гермошлем закрыт.
Closed.
Communications regained as Anatoly Ivanishin reports back to Russian flight controllers that the crew has closed the visors on their helmets. This in preparation for the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle.
ISS. Command.
627-3, гермошлемы закрыты, включаем
Visors are closed. The rescue aid command has been sent.
автомат.
At 6:27:30, we closed the visors.
Спасибо. Отснять тангенты, отключить передачу.
Deactivated the transmitter, and PTTs are released.
"30 minutes now until touchdown. Everything proceeding on track as we are approaching the point of pyrotechnic separation of the three sections. The uppermost section, the orbital module, and the lowermost section, the instrumentation and propulsion module, will separate from the descent module. That's the center section, with the crew strapped in to their seats, visors down, preparing for atmospheric entry and the first sensation of Earth's gravity since their launch back on July 7th. All quiet here in the flight control room in Houston as flight controllers continue to monitor the progress of the Soyuz's track toward its landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Across the ocean at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, flight controllers are standing by passively, watching the data on their screens as they attempt communications with the Soyuz. Again, communications always choppy at this point of a Soyuz descent back toward the Earth's atmosphere. About a minute and a half now from the separation of the modules. Inside 27 minutes until landing.
Moscow, this is Irkut 1.
Приняли Иркут.
We confirm we got use. We copy.
We're standing by for confirmation of module separation. Should be coming up in just a few seconds. Again, communications are choppy and intermittent. The Russian flight controllers will continue to be attempting to communicate with Anatoly Ivanishin, the Soyuz commander in the center seat of the descent module.
Moscow, this is Irkut 1. We confirm separation.
Принято, есть разделение.
Copy.
And module separation now confirmed, right on the money.
Confirmed.
The next milestone will be the Soyuz entering the Earth's atmosphere. That will occur in about 2 minutes at an altitude of 327,000 feet. Time to touchdown, 24.5 minutes. The Soyuz MS-01 and its 3 crew members, Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, and Takoya Onishi, are now beginning to enter the Earth's atmosphere. Once in the atmosphere, they will begin to feel the tug of gravity for the first time in 115 days. They're about a minute away from entering into the plasma regime. The crew members who have returned from such a Soyuz landing describe it as flying inside a fireball. Controlled entry guidance will also kick in through the onboard computers in the descent module as the Soyuz basically is guided toward its landing site in south-central Kazakhstan, some 148 kilometers southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. The search and recovery helicopters are now all airborne, all 10 prime helicopters heading for the landing site. They will arrive and be flying in the landing zone in a oval-shaped pattern, awaiting the arrival of the spacecraft under its large main chute. The Soyuz has its heat shield in the direction of travel to repel and ablate the buildup of heat, some 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is typical for an atmospheric entry. Coming up on the 20-minute mark until touchdown. The Soyuz is currently in the plasma regime. Temperatures around the spacecraft building to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the Soyuz and its crew members exit this plasma regime, they should begin a more improved communications link with the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft in the vicinity of the landing site that will serve as a flying command center, basically relaying vehicle data and voice communications from the crew. The crew is basically now feeling its peak G loads on their bodies, about 4 to 5 Gs being pulled by the crew. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters, part of the search and recovery forces, will be arriving in the vicinity of the landing zone just minutes from now. 18 minutes until touchdown, everything going by the book, no issues being reported. Communications still a bit intermittent and erratic with Anatoly Ivanishin on board the Soyuz and his crewmates, but that is to be expected at this point of the entry. We're about 3 minutes away from the point at which the command should be issued to open up the chute. Again, the opening up of the parachutes for the Soyuz is a sequential process. 2 pilot parachutes are deployed first, the second of which extracts a drogue chute that will slow the Soyuz's descent rate from 230 meters per second to about 80 meters per second. That will be followed in short fashion by the deployment of the main parachute, a huge orange and white chute that slows the Soyuz to a descent rate of about 7.2 meters per second.
Иркут, по Москвы.
Irkut, MCC Moscow. Irkut, MCC Moscow. How do you copy? 5 by 5 Moscow. Integer is plus 14. 3.5 is G load. And we're a little bit above the nominal curve. About 15 degrees, plus 15 degrees above the nominal curve.
Anatoly Ivanishin reestablishing communications with flight controllers in Korolyov. That familiar radio beacon providing geographical location through GPS and GLONASS satellites. Standing by for confirmation of the deployment of the parachutes. That should be coming up momentarily. Thirteen and a half minutes until touchdown. Although we should have passed the point of chute deployment, we're standing by for voice confirmation of that from the crew. However, all of the events preceding this point have gone by the book. No issues reported. Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, and Takuya Onishi just about 13 minutes away from touchdown. We should be regaining communications with the Soyuz through the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft a short time from now. Once again, hearing the radio beacon from the Soyuz.
Секунд ожидаем.
30 seconds, standing by. Unintelligible.
And there is our view, our first view of the Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft under its large orange and white main parachute.
We can confirm.
You saw just a moment ago the heat shield being deployed. That enables the base, the bottom of the Soyuz with its altimeter and soft landing engines to be exposed. The altimeter providing altitude and rate of descent information to the onboard computers for the firing of the soft landing engines just a second or two before touchdown.
Pressure is decreasing. Affirmative. Search and rescue services, this is Irkut 1. Standing by.
Search and recovery forces now have established communications with Anatoly Ivanishin aboard the Soyuz. The thick overcast that had been present around the landing site the last couple of days has broken just enough in the early Sunday morning hours in Kazakhstan to provide views of the Soyuz descending under its main parachute. Less than 9.5 minutes until touchdown.
One. Guys, get ready. Tighten it up.
All of the events, the deorbit burn, all of the entry timelined events have clicked off in perfect fashion. A moment ago you saw the Soyuz under its chutes.
Search and rescue services, Irkut 1, how do you copy?
And once again inside of cameras that are on all-terrain vehicles at the landing site, picking up intermittent views of the Soyuz as it darts in and out of cloud cover.
Search and rescue services, Irkut 1, how do you copy? Search and rescue services, how do you copy?
Less than 7.5 minutes until touchdown, everything looking good. Search and recovery forces and all of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters associated with the Russian, U.S., and Japanese support personnel are now circling the landing zone in sequential fashion. They're all in place, standing by for touchdown about 7 minutes from now.
Search and rescue services, Irkut 1. Search and rescue services. How do you read us? The crew is feeling fine. Everything is fine on board. Plus two. Discrete number is 0. 0.3, 0.5. 2660 is the altitude. Search and rescue services is Dakota 1.
The early morning Sunday sun glinting off the large main chute that is
Hello, crew.
carrying the Soyuz MS-01, Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, Takoya Onishi to a touchdown expected just over 5 minutes from now. Everything is in excellent shape and everything is ready on the ground for the recovery of the crew and the extraction of the 3 crew members from the Soyuz spacecraft.
How are you feeling, guys? Ours is plus 2 seconds on our monitors. Integers 32. 1.4 is the pressure for the 0.2, 0.5. Unintelligible.
The Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft drifting to its landing site to the southeast of the remote town of Jezkazgan. This landing sandwiched in between 2 launches, a frenetic pace of activity being carried out for the International Space Station's staffing of the complex.
$33, $34, right? Search and rescue services, this is Dakota 1. Unintelligible and inaudible. Mm. 1,300 is the altitude. 1,200.
About 3 minutes until touchdown. Everything looking good. The crew reporting on board that they are feeling well.
Are your seats primed? Yes, affirmative. They are primed.
That reference to the angle of the seat positions for the 3 crew members in the Soyuz spacecraft for the firing of the soft landing engines that will take place just a second or 2 above the ground, a final braking maneuver to ease the jolt of the touchdown under the main parachute. Time to touchdown about 2 minutes.
Altitude is 600.
And you can see one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters, search and recovery helicopters, circling nearby the Soyuz spacecraft to get an up-close and personal look. They will be landing in rapid succession near the spacecraft once it touches down. Just about 1 minute from touchdown. Standing by for touchdown. Touchdown confirmed at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:58 a.m. in Kazakhstan on Sunday morning. After a journey of 115 days and 48.6 million miles, the Expedition 49 crew is home. Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, and Takoya Onishi. And you can see from the video at the landing site that the Russian Mi-8 helicopters, part of the Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces, are making their way toward the spacecraft. They'll land one by one. One of the first orders of business will be the erection of an inflatable medical tent nearby the spacecraft. We will stand by for confirmation as to whether the Soyuz landed upright or on its side. It's not uncommon for the Soyuz to be dragged off onto its side because of wind conditions at the landing site that have an effect on the parachute. Once again, touchdown time, 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time. And on the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center, the Russian words "Есть посадка," they've landed. Once again, you can see off on the horizon from this video from the landing site, one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters in the process of landing. The video will be repositioned. The cameras on one of the all-terrain vehicles. They will make their way to the landing site a short time from now, and we should be receiving video a short time from now for the extraction of the caps of the crew from the spacecraft. It was a textbook touchdown, no issues reported. The Soyuz crew undocked. The deorbit burn was by the book, and all of the entry milestones were accomplished without any issue. Now confirmation that the Soyuz landed vertically. That will help expedite the extraction of the crew. A small ladder will be erected alongside the spacecraft to enable the crew to be extracted from the top hatch of the Soyuz. Again, The Soyuz spacecraft now confirmed to have landed upright. The video from the landing site will be lost for a short period of time while the all-terrain vehicle carrying the cameras is repositioned alongside of the spacecraft. Once again, landing occurring at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:58 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning, October 30th at the landing site, and we had confirmation that the Soyuz landed in an upright position.
Send station on 2 for ham radio.
Once again, you're watching a view from a balcony camera in the Russian Flight Control Room at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. The Soyuz MS-01, the first in a new genre of modernized system Soyuz spacecraft, glided to a landing under its large main parachute with a touchdown just 11 minutes ago at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, bringing home Soyuz Commander Anatoly Ivanishin, NASA Flight Engineer Kate Rubins, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency Flight Engineer Takuya Onishi to a landing in an upright position to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, an hour and 55 minutes after sunrise on a Sunday morning in Kazakhstan. The Soyuz landing upright. The all-terrain vehicles now making their way toward the spacecraft. We'll be awaiting the resumption of a live television picture from the landing site a short time from now as the extraction of the crew will get underway. The 3 crew members, Expedition 49, wrapping up 115 days in space, 113 days on the International Space Station, a journey of 1,840 orbits spanning 48.6 million miles. The Soyuz descended under its chute for essentially an on-target touchdown under partly cloudy skies. The weather was much more overcast in Kazakhstan over the course of the past couple of days, but the clouds broke just enough this morning to provide us with spectacular views of the Soyuz descending under its main parachute. Anatoly Ivanishin reported back to the search and recovery forces just before touchdown that the crew was feeling great. They were in good shape after a flawless descent following undocking from the International Space Station. The crew boarded the Soyuz and bid farewell to Shane Kimbrough, Andrei Borisenko, and Sergei Ryzhikov at about 4:12 p.m. Central Time this afternoon, boarding their Soyuz vehicle, closing the hatch behind them, and donned their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits and prepared for undocking that occurred at 7:35 p.m. Central Time as the Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 252 statute miles over southern Mongolia. The deorbit burn to begin the journey home for the Soyuz began at 10:06 p.m. Central Time, a 4-minute, 37-second retrograde engine firing that enabled the Soyuz to slow down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. And again, landing occurring at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:58 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. And back with television from the landing site, as you see members of the search and recovery forces and RSC Energia beginning the process of opening up the top hatch of the Soyuz spacecraft. They've already erected that small ladder to help facilitate the crew as they make their way down from the Soyuz. They'll be helped into a trio of chairs that are alongside the spacecraft. It's a chilly morning, temperatures around 34 degrees Fahrenheit, but otherwise you can see that the helicopters landed very quickly following the Soyuz touchdown, with the Soyuz landing in an upright position. And as is customary, out of the center seat of the Soyuz and first out, the Soyuz commander, Anatoly Ivanishin.
Congratulations. Hold him. Be careful. Welcome home. Congratulations, Anatoly. Wrap him with a blanket. Just like that. How are you feeling? Is everything okay?
Anatoly Ivanishin wrapping up his second long-duration mission on the International Space Station, now with 280 days in space on his 2 space flights.
You're smiling. That's great. Thank you. Are you ready? Okay, if you're ready, then let's do this. Your hand goes this way. Be careful. Good job. Great job. 1, 2, 3. You happy? Yeah, I can see that you're very happy. Turn him, please, and 1 second. Be careful.
Takuya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency wrapping up his first mission, being helped down the ladder after his extraction from the Soyuz spacecraft.
Left seat, please. Be careful. Welcome back. This way. Okay, now on the blanket. We are ready to take measurements.
So Ivanishin and Onishi out of the Soyuz spacecraft in rather swift fashion, landing occurring just 21 minutes ago.
Everything is great. Everybody feels great. That's awesome. Kate, are you ready? If yes, then be careful. You should be in a lower position. Yes, just like that. No.
And the search and recovery support personnel and RSC Energia support personnel preparing to remove Kate Rubins from her Soyuz spacecraft.
Your arms should be a little bit higher. They should be there. Great job, Kate. Great job. Let her breathe a little bit. Great job, Kate. Yes, breathe a couple of minutes. Okay, slowly but surely. Let's turn her to the left. Be careful. Very careful. This way. Are you ready? Is everybody ready? Be careful.
Flashing that familiar smile that we have seen so often during her 4 months in space. Kate Rubins now out of the Soyuz spacecraft. All 3 crew members out.
Kate, welcome back. You're looking good.
Hey! Wait a second. Yes. Don't forget the blanket. And don't forget to take the measurements right away.
Doing good. Far better than expected.
What do you need right now?
You sit here and enjoy the earth. Thank you.
Measurements. Don't forget the measurements.
Hey, we're doing good. And I'm just not with my head.
Sorry, you looked at me. Fish anything out of anywhere? Big time. Yeah, right on top of
Yeah. There's one on my other wrist.
Did you take the measurements? Yes, I did. We need to take pressure values.
Just talk to Mike. Ready for you.
Второй держатель, что ли, перейти куда?
This is Mission Control Houston. All three crew members, the Expedition 49 crew, now out of the Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft.
And that's all it like the new...
In good shape. At the landing site, my colleague Dan Hewitt has landed. He is now out of his Russian Mi-8 helicopter. And Dan, are you with us? And tell us what you can see out there.
Yeah, hey Rob, on the ground now. I think our helo took a long way here, but we made it. And as you can see, all three crew members already out of their Soyuz on the ground safely. Kay Rubins being attended to by the NASA team now, getting all those initial checkouts. And Joe Akava, a NASA astronaut with a contingent here, just handed her a sat phone, as is customary, giving the crew member a chance to talk to family, probably watching your broadcast from back there in Houston.
Dan, the landing, we saw it almost all the way down under the chutes under broken clouds. It looks like it caught a break in the weather today with very good visibility, although it appears chilly. What's the scene? Is the medical tent inflated, and what lies ahead with the medical tests set to come over the next couple of hours?
Yeah, the medical tent is set up, and I got to tell you, the weather we could not ask for better weather for a landing this time of year. In fact, Kamiya Yui's here with the Japanese group attending to Takuya Onishi over on the end. And for those that remember, Yui landed in December of last year, and it was pretty much night and day from now with the conditions-wise. It's probably a couple of degrees above freezing, so not doing too bad out here. I actually feel a little bit overdressed for the occasion, but doing very well right now with the weather. But some nice, cool, fresh air for these crew members for the first time in 115 days. But the medical tent is set up. It's just about 50 yards away or so. And after all these initial checkouts, the crew going to get carried one by one in their chairs over to that medical tent. Two of the crew members are going to be participating in the field test. And that's been something that we've been doing with returning Soyuz crews for the last couple of years now, where they'll do just a series of basic functional tasks, things that sound fairly easy, like just standing up from a sitting position, walking in a straight line, even getting a little shove. But all of that just to gauge their capabilities immediately upon returning into a gravity environment. It can be a little jarring on the body to go from a long period of time in microgravity back to 1G Earth gravity norm. And so it's good to understand what the astronauts are capable of, not necessarily something super important for these returning Soyuz crews. As you can see, they have a lot of folks on hand to help them get out of the capsule and get transported around, but going to be something of paramount importance when we send those first crew members off to the Red Planet, off to Mars. We need to know what they're going to be able to do, what their capabilities, how functional they'll be immediately after landing. So this field test, just a really important study, taking crew members from that real-world situation of being in microgravity, throwing them back into gravity and seeing how they're able to hold up. So the science still not done for these crew members, even though they are off the International Space Station.
Dan, a pretty placid crew after the rigors of a reentry. They all look very calm, cool, and collected. What will happen now after the field testing is complete in the medical tent? What's the scenario for the next several hours as they head back home?
Well, since weather seems to be cooperating, we're going to go with what's known as the nominal plan to the normal plan, and so the crew members now making their way to the medical tent. The Soyuz commander, Anatoly Ivanishin, first through the gate, and then Tak and Kate Rubins are going to be close behind. But they're going to go into this tent and do these tests, and then they'll get loaded into their own helicopters. And the plan right now is to fly back to Karaganda, where there are going to be 2 planes waiting for these crew members. First, though, they'll do the customary welcoming ceremony, where they get some souvenirs from the Kazakh representatives. But then once all of that's completed, it'll be on the planes for Anatoly Ivanishin. It'll be onto the GCTC plane, the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane, as he makes his way back to home base in Star City, Russia. But for Kate Rubins and Takuya Onishi, they'll load up onto the NASA jet, and within about 24 hours, we'll be back in Houston. So still a bit of a long day for these crew members, but they are safe and sound now back here on Earth.
And Dan, we're getting great views as the crew makes its way into the medical tent. We're getting a great shot of Takuya Onishi having wrapped up his first flight into space. The mechanics of a Soyuz landing always fascinate me. How about the efficiency of the search and recovery forces supplanted by the NASA and Japanese support teams?
I think you can see just by the ability to get these helicopters and the ATVs on the ground within moments after the Soyuz, especially in fairly rough conditions they usually deal with in the winter, is just kind of a testament to the ability of these search and recovery forces. They've been doing it a long time. They're very practiced, but they are very good.
And we're watching Kenny Todd, ISS Mission Operations Integration Manager, and Joe Akaba, veteran astronaut representing the astronaut office here at the Johnson Space Center, carrying Kate Rubins to the medical tent, where again the 3 crew members will doff their Sokol launch and entry suits, get into more comfortable flight clothing, and they will undergo these medical tests before they board a trio of helicopters to head back to the staging city in Karaganda, about 2 hours to the northeast. Dan, appreciate all of the work. Fly safe back to Karaganda and back to Houston, and we'll see you soon. Don't get too comfortable. We have a launch in 3 weeks.
That's right. And we'll be swapping places for that one, but always good to call in. Like I said, very fortunate the weather is cooperating much nicer than it did last year, but always great to be down here to see these crew members home and give you guys a call in to tell you what's going on. But that'll do it for me out here in the middle of Kazakhstan. Back to you, Rob, and I'll see you in a couple of days.
All right, Dan, safe travels back to the United States. Dan Hewitt, my colleague at the landing site in Kazakhstan, where the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle touched down in flawless fashion. You see the descent module in its upright position. It stuck the landing, if you will, at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, with Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, and Takuya Onishi back on Earth after 115 days in space, 113 days aboard the International Space Station, wrapping up a journey of some 48.6 million miles.
Я могу свой пост включить вместо Харашенера.
Ну-ка еще раз, подожди.
Куда переехать?
О. Ну и теперь на камеру давай,
Да,
покрути
передай привет
его.
на экипажу звезде.
Now you can say hi to your colleagues, to your family. This is my local camera.
Серега, какой ты на зуб сам? Я знаю. Пускай видит. Даже самолет крупнее. Ну, это еще и гордо так. Да.
И тебе, да, не хворать.
Life.
This is Mission Control Houston, once again live video from the landing site southeast of Jezkazgan, Kazakhstan. There's the view of the inflatable medical tent in which the Expedition 49 crew, Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins, and Takoya Onishi were brought inside a short time ago, just minutes after they landed upright in their Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft, landing occurring at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, which was 9:58 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. The crew was quickly extracted from the top hatch of the Soyuz spacecraft as the Russian Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces landed very quickly, indicating that the Soyuz landed just about right on the money. Its intended landing site, expediting the ability of the recovery teams to get to the crew as quickly as possible. As my colleague Dan Hewitt alluded to, and you can see a good view of the huge orange and white parachute that helped slow the descent of the Soyuz descent module to its landing site in Kazakhstan, being loaded into a large bag, basically, as it will be brought back for post-flight analysis along with the descent module itself. Those items brought back to Moscow for analysis by RSC Energia technicians. And again, as my colleague Dan Hewitt indicated a short time ago from the landing site, the crew inside the medical tent now will doff their SOCO launch and entry suits, get into more comfortable flight clothing. They will be moved to individual helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to Karaganda, which is to the northeast of the landing site. There they will move into the airport terminal at Karaganda for what is expected to be a traditional Kazakh welcoming ceremony. The crew then will split up, with Anatoly Ivanishin boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to Chkalovsky Airfield outside of his training base and home in Star City, Russia, while Kate Rubins and Takoya Onishi board a NASA plane for the flight back to Houston. And now we're receiving replays of the descent of the Soyuz spacecraft. This taken from one of the airborne search and recovery helicopters. The parachute on the Soyuz deployed as planned at and you can see one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters just in the vicinity of the Soyuz as it made its way toward the landing site. An excellent view on these replays. The parachute was commanded to deploy right on time at 10:44 p.m. Central Time, about 14 minutes before touchdown. And again, this rather spectacular view of the Soyuz descending under its chute toward the landing site about 148 kilometers to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where the search and recovery forces had overnighted following their flights and Russian helicopters from the staging city in Karaganda in the wee hours Saturday morning. And you can see in this replay the soft landing engines firing just a second or two before touchdown in a final braking maneuver. And again, the Soyuz landed upright, which helped to expedite the extraction of the crew out of the top hatch of the MS-01 vehicle. This is a live view once again from the landing site as we stand by for any additional video replays of touchdown. Again, the one you just saw was essentially of the money shot of the Soyuz braking rockets firing, taken from one of the airborne search and recovery helicopters. And there you can see the descent module, the only section of the Soyuz spacecraft that returns to Earth with the crew on board. These are technicians from RSC Energia who are taking photographs and acquiring some other data, measurements of the Soyuz spacecraft. Those are the chairs in which the crew members were placed for a few minutes after their extraction from the spacecraft to afford them an opportunity to get their land legs back a bit.
Да. Тебя тоже Аня встречает. 523.
523.
Сейчас, так,
Ready yet? Getting there.
Георгич? Где Георгич? Снова? Владимир, это вот эти синие машины. Зачем? Вот здесь ставьте, вот поставили же.
Have you installed it?
Вы уже посадили, не помните. Там? Вы где отделить? Там, кстати? Да. На той стороне. Он у нас третий же? Ну, да.
Where do you want to install it? On this side or on that side? I believe on this side.
Так, ну давайте эту ставить. Ставить, да?
All right. Let's install the ladder.
Так, японцев мы сажаем туда.
Ну как чуть-чуть, там хорошая доля. Алло. Да?
И вот так вот, вот так вот. Смотри, вот так вот сейчас вот довернем, желобом туда будет. Желоб как раз на это. У нас там каждый блок туда, желоб должен от него. Желоб на это, там даже... Взяли. Вверх, подели. Туда не стой желобом, да. Туда желобом.
Yes, that way. You should try to install it that direction.
Да нет, Саня, я тебе говорю не так. А зачем? Ты куда хочешь? Крути на меня.
Rotate it. Rotate it.
Не, наоборот, туда, на нас, Миш, крутить вот так.
Counterclockwise. A little bit more.
Много-то не надо туда.
Вот так.
Just like this.
Выбиваем.
Там нельзя туда. Фиксируем. Держи, а?
Let's secure it now.
Сюда скинуть, там не зафиксировалось. Георгий, правда, Георгий? Куда надо скинуть? А у него там это... Не встанет. Георгий? Не встанет, Георгий, правильно, сюда надо скинуть.
I don't think it has been installed properly. I think we need to rotate it to the left a little bit.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're continuing to receive video replays of the first minutes of the recovery and extraction of the Expedition 49 crew from their Soyuz spacecraft. Landing occurred just under an hour ago at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time. This replay shows the erection of that small ladder and slide that is used when the Soyuz lands in an upright position to initiate the extraction of the crew.
Пока приготовьте бортовую документацию, Анатолий. Сейчас включена, смотри, я перещелкну. Смотри, горит там нет? Вторая видна, все нормально? Подай палку, Миша. Большой, нижний. Давай. Сейчас есть сигнал? Есть сейчас сигнал? Внимание, оператор.
Attention, we're opening the hatch.
Once again, this is a replay of the activities that occurred within minutes of the Soyuz landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan not quite an hour ago, as the RSC Energia technicians worked to begin the process of extracting the 3 crew members who are now inside an inflatable medical tent nearby the descent module, undergoing initial medical tests.
Welcome. And it's Oli, so how are you feeling? We need a smaller bag now. Which one? The smaller one.
Да там не встает он так. Сань, Степаныч. Смотри, да. Понятно. Не можно отец. Так, где Герман? Сейчас еще. Таланкин, Серега. Все работает. Что, понял, да? Давай так, я вот сюда сейчас становлюсь.
I'll stand right here.
Командир пойдет, нет?
Anatoly, how are you feeling? Okay, one by one.
Два электрических разъема.
2 electrical connectors.
Электрику в карман заправь скафандра.
Please put it inside your suit pocket.
Здесь +1 сейчас.
What's the temperature like? It's like +1 centigrade.
Космонавт спрашивает, какая сила тяжести. Да, давай потихонечку. Сила тяжести 1-0. Очки оставишь на себе или давай подержи пока.
So you can put it in the pocket or you can leave it there.
Не торопись, потихонечку.
No rush.
Не спеша. Вот. Сейчас. Аккуратней. На руках потянуться надо.
Be careful.
Осторожно. Руки наверх.
Careful again.
Так, тихо. Не спеши.
No rush.
Назад на лямку бери.
Hold him
Тихо.
just like that.
Помни, о чем спросили, Саш. Давай потихонечку. Туда надергайся, ногами там поднимай ноги. Ноги ко мне. Не торопись, подыши.
No rush, just like we said. It's been a while since I did something like that. Hold him, be careful.
Вот сюда.
Carry him here.
Наколенные снял.
Did you take off the knee pads?
Повыше.
Put him higher on the armchair and wrap him with a blanket.
Электрические швабры. Карман спрячь, карман капанка. Посмотри, что ремни не мешали. Ремни прикрою люк. Когда будешь готов, мы откроем, тебя вытащим. Поможем выйти. Сейчас. Да. Нормально. Обижаешь. Вчера мы все удачно сходили к ней.
Everything was great. Thank you.
Это он лысый? Нет, борода. Я просто чуть забыл, чтобы не поломать. Они у него гнутые.
На тебе еще зачем?
Это на том. Какое, как дела?
How are you doing?
Готов?
So, are you ready?
Готов? Внимание.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Голову. Молодец.
Great job.
Потихоньку.
Slowly.
Сам. Молодец. Молодец. Хорошо.
Great job. Great job, Tuck. 1, 2, 3.
Ой, вот зачем. Прибытием. Мы рады вас видеть. Да. Ты еще больше рад, да?
So, you're very happy. That's great.
Так, сейчас потихонечку поворачиваем.
Turn him to the left.
Внимание, приготовиться принимать.
Attention, please. Are you ready? Is everybody ready?
Да, готовы?
Ready? Let's go.
Готовы. Вперед, на левое кресло.
We should carry him to the left seat. Be careful.
Добро пожаловать на землю.
Welcome home.
Только чуть дальше, да. Отходи, мы вперед зайдем. работает. Deorbit Посмотри, кто прилетает из Onishi. Готовы снимать замер. Готово. Сейчас точно так же я прикрою. Перебираешься, как будет готово стать. Да, не говори. Ну, отлично.
У меня ощущение, что на 2 минуты раньше.
Значит, палатка. Самочувствие прекрасное у всех. Все. Готово?
Kate, are you ready? Be careful, please.
Пониже. Пониже сядь немножко.
Sit down a little bit lower. Just like that. Great job.
Сюда руками, да.
No rush. Your arms should be here. Do a pull-up.
Хорошо.
That's great. A little bit higher.
Так, взяли? Поехали.
Ready?
Она легенькая.
Кто еще? Анатолий Ильич, еще помощников.
Пускай подышит чуть-чуть.
Еще помощников надо.
Пусть подышит.
Let her breathe. Let her breathe a couple of minutes.
Потихонечку. Не спеши, да?
No rush.
Поворачивай.
Let's turn her.
Поворачивай сюда. Всё. Так, готовы?
Ready? Is everybody ready? Let's go.
Отдали.
Just like that.
И сюда за мной.
Follow me.
Справа.
To the right.
Kate, welcome back. You're looking good.
Измерение.
Don't forget the measurements.
Можно выбрать одно из командира.
Far better than expected.
Да, не будем отвлекать сильно.
Sit here and enjoy the earth.
Пикник. Да. Толик, пока вспоминай. Потому что не было слышно по перекись, по наддуву. Перекись. Первая часть 10 раз всего 10. Замер. Сколько? Наддув. Замер. 4,10, а перекись 0,2 и 0,3. Никаких СМС не было, да? Все так. Расплачу, кстати, можно будет. Сколько? 105 это что?
105 это Подожди, чуть-чуть. Hey. Doing good. And I'm just gonna not move my head around.
I was going to say, I felt sorry, you're looking me over to the side. Fish anything out of anywhere? Take your time.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to watch replays from the search and recovery teams at the landing site in Kazakhstan who recovered the Expedition 49 crew just over an hour ago following their landing. The landing occurring at 10:58 p.m. Central Time, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time. An on-target landing that brought home Anatoly Ivanishin, Kate Rubins of NASA, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency flight engineer Takuya Onishi after 115 days in space. The three crew members are safely inside an inflatable medical tent, undergoing preliminary medical exams as we watch these replays. The three crew members will board Russian Mi-8 helicopters, in all likelihood within the hour, to begin a 2-hour flight back to the staging city in Karaganda, Kazakhstan, to the northeast of the landing site, before the crew splits up, with Anatoly Ivanishin returning to his home base in Star City, Russia. Kate Rubins and Takoya Onishi will fly back on a NASA jet to Houston. This is Mission Control Houston. We've wrapped up the replays of the landing of the Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft. With the three crew members safely inside the inflatable medical tent, having landed on target and on time at 10:58 p.m. Central, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:58 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday, October 30th. They soon will depart the landing site in Russian Mi-8 helicopters for the flight back to Karaganda, Kazakhstan, and the longer trip back to their respective homes, with Kate Rubins and Takoya Onishi returning to Houston on a NASA jet, and Anatoly Ivanishin returning to Star City, Russia on a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft. Everything went by the book, no issues at all with the return of the Expedition 49 crew. Left on board the International Space Station, the Expedition 50 crew. The 50th expedition to the International Space Station officially underway under the command of NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, joined up in orbit by his Russian crewmates Andrei Borisenko and Sergei Ryzhikov. They will remain a three-man crew for the next 3 weeks until the next trio of space station residents is launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in the wee hours of November 18th Baikonur time. That crew consisting of Peggy Whitson of NASA, Russian Soyuz commander Oleg Novitsky, and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. So with that, we're going to wrap up our coverage of the Expedition 49 crew safely back on Earth after 115 days in space, 113 days aboard the International Space Station, a journey of 48.6 million miles. Thanks for joining us throughout the day and the evening. Expedition 49 safely back on Earth. This is Mission Control Houston.